Welcome to Easy Math TV. We're going to create a grouped frequency data table in Excel. Um, this method will work regardless of whether our data is continuous or discrete. So it's honestly the easiest way that I could think of to do it in such a way that you'll be able to reuse this sheet over and over again. So again, we're in Microsoft Excel and we are going to create a grouped frequency data table. So let's just get right into it because there's a lot to this. So typically what we will do is if we have a single data set, in this case, there's just one variable, one data set, it goes in column A. So basically I've copied the data from another source and I just pasted it over here in column A. And it goes all the way from A1 all the way down to A60. So there are 60 numbers here, 60 basically test scores. Okay, so and it's unsorted. So basically we're not going to need to sort it at all. We're just copying and pasting it in there. But there are some preliminary calculations that we need to make. So that's here in columns B and C. We need the smallest value, we need the largest value, and then we need to get a rough estimate of how the data should be binned. And then I'm going to decide here where it says adjusted bin width, that's just going to be like that's up to you. You get to decide what your bin width is going to be, but it needs to be a relatively close number to the number that we calculate in C3 here. So these are all formulas here. So let's just look at all those formulas. For the smallest number, that's equals min. That's the min function in Excel. Equals min, parenthesis, A1 colon, A60, close parenthesis. So again, I just kind of messed that up a little bit. So let me just repeat myself. This is happening in cell C1, and we're calculating the smallest number. Equals min, parenthesis, A1 colon, A60, close parenthesis. Hit enter. Feel free, by the way, to pause this video at any point and type in the stuff that you need in your own sheet. So just keep along, try to keep following along step by step. This is a step-by-step thing. We need to calculate the largest value. So that's happening in cell C2. Equals max, parenthesis, A1 colon A60, close parenthesis, and hit enter. So in our data, we see so far that our smallest value is 64, our largest value is 93. So now we want to take the range of those values and divide by 10. So in cell C3, we're going to calculate that. That's equals parenthesis C2 minus C1, then add 1 plus 1, close parenthesis, divided by 10. Again, that's equals parenthesis C2 minus C1 plus 1, close parenthesis, slash 10, and hit enter. And it just happens to be an even number here. Like sometimes you'll get a decimal value. So your bin width needs to be a whole number that is kind of close to that number there. And I decided that, especially because these are grades, that I want my bin width to be 4 because that's kind of a standard range for different grade calculations. And then over here, so now that we're ready to go, we need to set up our frequency data table. That's going to happen over here in columns E, F, and G. E, F, and G. Because we need the cumulative frequencies as well. We're going to need those numbers for some of our calculations that you're going to see in a moment. Okay, so the first thing that we do is put in all of our numbers in column E. The heading here this is the start of each bin, okay? So this is the starting value for each bin. And the starting value of the first bin is always going to be, I'm always going to copy over my minimum, my smallest value. So that's equals C1. Okay. That goes in cell E2. So just copy over by using equals, by just referring back to that cell, just copy that into E2. Okay, so equals C1. And we don't need fixed references there. We're not going to be doing any copying of this formula at all. We're not filling it down. This one, however, we will. So in cell E3 now, this starts our pattern. This establishes a pattern for how we calculate the starts of each bin. So in cell E3, type equals E2, so that's the number above it, plus the bin width. So equals E2 plus $4. And you'll notice I did use a fixed reference there. I used a $sign in front of the 4 because we're going to be filling this formula down. So the E2 is always referring to the number directly above it and then adding $4. So I just clicked on the anchor in the lower right corner and dragged it all the way down until I had a 96 because you go down to the first number that is beyond your data values. And you'll notice that our largest number was a 93. So 92 was not far enough. I needed to go one further. Okay, just go one more than the range of your data goes. Okay, so what you see there, that's done now. You have all of the starts of each bin. Okay, now let's look at the frequencies. To count them, we need a formula, a special formula in Excel called COUNTIF, because we're only going to be counting the numbers that meet a criteria that they have to be within our bin. So the way we do that is we use the COUNTIF formula. So F2 is where we're typing, okay? I put the heading at the top in F1. The heading at the top is for frequency. And in F2, we type equals COUNTIF parenthesis A1 colon A60, comma. And then we need to put double quotes, less than, double quote. And then we need an ampersand because the ampersand is going to say, I want to take the number in E3, which is the next bin, and I want to compare any number in my data to that number. If it's less than that, I want to count it. If it's not less than that, I don't want to count it. So that's what the COUNTIF does. COUNTIF says, if a number is less than 68, I want to count it. If it's not less than 68, I want to leave it alone, okay? So there are special ways that Excel has of typing things in. So you have to be really careful that you're using the correct keystrokes here. Like it's important to put certain symbols in. That way Excel knows what you're doing. All right, so let me just read that off one more time. This is in cell F2, and it's your introduction to the COUNTIF formula. So it's equals COUNTIF parenthesis A1 colon A60, so that's your data, comma, double quote, less than, double quote, ampersand E3 close parenthesis. Because the number we're comparing it to, we're comparing all of our values in our data set to the next bin, the start of the next bin, because we only want to count things that are less than that. All right, that's what's going in cell F2. And hit enter, and using my data, there should be, I actually went through and I counted all the numbers, 64, 65, 66, and 67, not counting 68. And there were 6 of them, so that's good. Jump across to G2 and just copy that number over. So in G2, you're just going to type equals F2 for now. Okay, so this first bin, the first row here has has shortened formulas because that's just the start. Um, the pattern that we have is going to be established in row 3 once we put in our second bin of values, okay? So let's look at F3. In F3, we're going to use that same countif formula, so everything should look a little bit familiar there. However, we're going to be subtracting something at the end of it. We need to subtract all the values that we've already counted so far. So we're going to be subtracting off anything in the cumulative frequency that's above this row. Okay, so again, we are typing this in F3. This is our second bin of numbers. The second bin of numbers starts with the number 68 and goes up to 72, but does not include 72. So we type equals countif parenthesis, and it's $1. Now we need a fixed reference because we're going to be filling down. So $1 colon $60, comma, and now a double quote less than double quote, and then an ampersand, and this time it's E4 because that's the next bin down, close parenthesis, minus G2. So the cumulative frequency that was just above this row was in G2. Again, that's equals countif parenthesis $1 colon $60, comma, double quote less than double quote, ampersand E4 close parenthesis minus G2, and hit enter. So there should be 8 there. If I had not subtracted the 6, we would have had 14 here, which is not correct because we don't want to count all 14. We only want the ones that are in this bin. Okay, now, and then go across to G3, and this establishes the pattern for the cumulative frequencies. You take, you type equals, and you take the frequency for that row, which is in F3, and you add the cumulative frequency that's just above it. So this one is equals F3 plus G2, and that is going into cell G3 here. So the cumulative frequency is always the current row frequency plus the cumulative frequency just above. Okay? The number to the left plus the number above. Hit enter. Fortunately, those two formulas only had to be typed in once because now we can highlight or select F3 across to G3, click on that anchor in the lower right corner and fill it down until you have a cumulative frequency that equals the size of your data. So you'll notice if I had filled down one more row accidentally, we would get numbers that just don't make any sense. So I'm just going to subtract those out because they don't make any sense. And that is a grouped frequency data table. And it tells us what our frequencies are in each of these bins that started with the values that you see here. So each of these bins, we only see their left endpoint. We don't see the one on the right, but that's only because the one on the right actually starts with the next bin, okay? So that is the grouped frequency data table. In the next video, we're going to actually create a histogram from that. So I'm going to end there and let you set up your data tables in Excel and then come back to the next video so we can see how to make a histogram, okay? Like, subscribe, comment down below. Share these videos with people if you think that they will find them useful for their stats classes or for just learning a little bit of statistics. And I'll see you in the next video.